I need to go back to my childhood home, but something that happened during my time there is stopping me from doing so. Honestly, there was nothing creepy about the house I grew up in. No dusty attic or dark basement that any reasonable child would be afraid of. But there was something. Something that, for some reason, absolutely terrified the shit out of me. It was one of those unexplainable childhood traumas that you would look back on and laugh at how stupid you were. Yet, I can't bring myself to laugh. It just feels wrong. When I was about 10, I moved out of my sister's bedroom into a guest room that my parents had been leaving empty for a while. They didn't explain why it was unoccupied for so long, but I assumed they were saving it specially for me after I reached a mature age, and never questioned anything beyond that. I mean, could you blame me though? Such questions never crossed my gullible little mind. But I won't lie, I loved the room. It was tucked away, out of sight, hiding in a corner of the house that my family didn't frequent. No one could disturb me. While the interior was plain, different from the extensive designs the rest of the house had, it was the largest of all the rooms. And to 6-year-old me, that was like the best thing ever. So of course, I would accept the room without hesitation, even if something unsettled me. Something being the curtains. I know, it sounds stupid, and I know it is stupid, but the wall curtains in the room never sat right with me. They hung opposite of my bed, stained like yellowing teeth. No matter whether there was wind or not, they would ripple as if pulsating, breathing, living. And as they swayed, the edges would just barely brush against the wooden floor, like a corpse dangling from a noose, whose feet would never touch the ground again. That was what I saw. That was what I was afraid of. As long as I was in the room, those curtains would never leave me. They haunted both my waking and sleeping hours, whisking in and out of the corner of my eyes. I even put up posters, shelves of action figures, basically filled the entire place with all the toys and books that I liked in hopes I could distract myself from the uneasiness. But it wasn't long before that uneasiness grew into fear. And in turn, that fear plagued my sight. Soon, I began to see feet at the bottom of the curtains. A small pair of feet. At first it was just fleeting moments, disappearing when I did a double take. I thought it was just a speck of something in my eye. Floaters, I learned after searching a bit on the family computer. Yeah, that had to be it. Floaters and my stupid imagination messing with my head. I remember calling myself crazy and laughing it off every time. But it didn't stop there. Oh, by God, I wish it did. It was right after my 11th birthday party. The guests had long left, and we were about done with the cleaning and packing up. Even though it was close to midnight, I remember not being tired at all. I still had energy. In fact, there was probably enough energy in me to keep me going for days. It was also one of the rare few times my strict parents allowed me to stay up. So, naturally, the excitement added to my determination to stay awake for as long as possible. My mom, knowing there was nothing she could do to possibly convince me to sleep, just sent me to my room after we were done. Humming, I headed over to my special corner of the house, twisted the doorknob and pushed the door open. There were feet. They were unmistakable. 2 little lumps of flesh and fat, under the hypnotic swaying of the curtains, were pointed directly at me. I blinked and rubbed my eyes. They didn't disappear. Illuminated by the cold white LED lights of the neighbor's house, those feet seemed to glow, as if asking to be seen. A scream gurgled at the back of my throat, but it only came out as croaks. I tried to run, but my legs couldn't move. I pulled and tugged and yanked, but like the pale feet under the curtain, mine didn't move. As my gaze locked, for the first time, being so far away from my family became a nightmare. I inched closer. It happened before I could comprehend my own actions. Then again, and again, I found myself approaching the curtains against my own will. Their haunting billowing, the unnatural ebb and flow of the synthetic sheets begged me to come closer. I couldn't stop. At some point, I think I didn't want to stop even if I could. The curtains were right in front of me, and that disgusting yellowish color of maggots was all I could see. The fabric crawled on my face. Then, I was drowning. I didn't know how I ended up stuck in the curtains, but I was. They wrapped themselves around me, and every push in an attempt to free myself only seemed to drag me deeper into their prickly grasp. My heart pounded. The air melted into a humid sludge, and so each breath I drew grew shallower and shallower. My head spun, and it was then when I realized there was no exit. There was no escape. Only the rotting yellow of the curtains and the cold white light that it soaked in existed. As my consciousness started to fade, I remember thinking one thing very clearly. I was going to become the pair of feet under the curtains. I awoke a few hours later on my parents' bed. As soon as I saw my mom standing over me, I bawled my eyes out and babbled incoherently about what I had experienced. Unsurprisingly, she didn't believe me. She just told me that I had fainted in my room due to exhaustion and left it as that. But I didn't mind. Her warm smile was soothing, and I was away from the curtains. That was all that mattered then. Despite what she said, my parents asked me to move back into my sister's room the next day. The suddenness of the situation was odd, but I obviously welcomed it. Then they locked up my old room with all my stuff inside. As much as I wanted them back, it meant being near those awful curtains once more. So I left them there. And just like that, the room and its curtains were never brought up again. I eventually moved out of my childhood home into my own studio apartment in the middle of a bustling city. My parents still live in that house. Well, lived. They recently passed away in a freak accident while traveling to visit me. My sister, as the new heir of the house, decided to put it up for sale since it was far too big for her family. So now I'm supposed to help her clean out their belongings. Unfortunately, this includes my old stuff in that room. I keep telling myself there is nothing creepy about the house I grew up in. Yet, I can't bring myself to go back. What if I see those curtains flutter? What if I see my own feet again? And that was I Need to Go Back to My Childhood Home, but something that happened during my time there is stopping me from doing so, by Quarter Alone 81. Now, what I like about this story is the fact that it's not insanely long. There's not a ridiculous amount of creatures or mind-boggling effects going on. Sorry, I'm still sick. I've come back from holiday. I'm feeling very congested. You could probably tell by the sound of my voice and everything, but it's been so difficult to even kind of get back into working, but I need to. So anyway. So I like the story because it reminds you of perhaps a familiar situation. You know what I mean? It can resonate with you in a certain way. For me, especially because I too, when I was growing up, before the age of like 9 or 10 years old, I used to share a room with my brother, my younger brother. My older brother had his own room at this time, but me and my younger brother, it was like a bunk bed situation. You share a room in a house because you're both young and stuff. And it was fairly fun, but eventually our guest room at the time, my parents allowed me to use that as my room if I wanted to, kind of thing, which I did, and it was yet again. Then it's like we all had our own room. I had a big bed and stuff like that, but yet again, it started off as a guest room, so a lot of this resonates really well with me. Except I didn't have creepy, situations like this author, for example, the creator of the story. You got to think. You got to really wonder though. It's so I like the initial premise. I like the fact that it's like there's nothing super horrific going on. Nobody's gonna die or anything that we're aware of. You've just got they've noticed that there's creepy feet beneath their curtains every once in a while. Sometimes they disappear, and one time they didn't, and somehow that ended up having them be the ones that are the feet. I didn't fully get all that, but I kind of understood what they were going for. How it's like it turns out they were that person. But then it makes me wonder, like the feet. I mean, it made it sound like the feet weren't really like normal looking feet. They were like a little bit maybe a little bit more sad. Maybe like less color, for example. Maybe like a dead person or something. And I don't know. It was just it's a bit strange because then it just kind of well, I mean, so I didn't have an issue with it where the story took that turn. I think the part for me that kind of really lost me a little bit, where I kind of stopped, being like, oh, okay, this is so cool, was around the end part where it's like, oh, okay, they moved into a studio apartment. Their parents have died, but they still own the house. But now, obviously, it's in the sister's name, and she's going to sell it and stuff. So they locked that room, right? Back when this guy was like, anywhere from like 6 to 9 years old or whatever, and they locked up that room. So obviously the parent, you don't just lock a room. You don't just lock a room. An entire room that could be used as storage, you don't lock a room. So I think the parents knew a little bit more than they were letting on. First off, right? That's my first thought. You don't just keep a room locked all the time. That's crazy. But then second, over the years, because clearly this person now has their own apartment, they must be at least like 16, 18 years old to do something like that. At least, because, got to make their own bills or go to school or whatever. So many years have passed. Nothing else seems to have happened with that room. So you tell me it's still left exactly the same way all these years later? I find that kind of fishy. And then even when the parents pass away, and then his sister now inherits it with her family, but it's too much for them to manage, so they're moving out. You telling me she's never unlocked that room? I don't know. Just that's just my 2 cents. The end bit, I was just like, okay, I get why they're so paranoid about the room, but I think it's weird that it's never been investigated or brought up or even utilized at all. 10 plus years down the line. It's just, nah. Besides that, though, great story. It's yet again, it's a thing that brings you into a level of reality. It resonates a lot more with you. It makes you, I think it's just, yet again, it steeps it in reality, which gives it more creep factor, if you ask me. Something that I feel I can relate to, I definitely find a little more scary because it could happen, Anyway, I'm Nate at Night. This has been it's been another great story. I've enjoyed it. I sure hope you have too. I'm gonna go take some medicine because I feel like crap. I'll see you for whatever's next, guys. Take care.
Thank you so much to our Patreon members and YouTube members for making all this content possible. You know who you are.